Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to the show at the website. And that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. There are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite platforms. You can check out or sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month. And you can also check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts and some designs by friends of the show. And speaking of other friends of the show, please follow Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays when she's able to join me. And Ricky of the Anything Is Possible, as I do shows with him now on Sundays, all on paranormal things, and those are a lot of fun. And he does his own other shows as well. And host of Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP, digital broadcast, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. So thank you all for being here and listening in. And I did want to announce I am going to stick with the late night, early morning shows for the weekdays, recordings for the weekdays. They seem to be the best fit for me, and at this point, that's what I have to do to keep things going. So that will happen the live recordings I'm talking about here, not just the show releases, but the actual recording streams will happen every Tuesday through Friday at 1 a.m. Eastern, which is actually 10 p.m. Pacific of the previous night. I don't like that it's sort of confusing in that way, but at this point, as long as you have access to the internet, you can check on times and time zones and all that, and keep track of it that way. And I've done the same thing before, so I am not talking down to anyone here. I've had to do that before. So, but yeah, so I think that takes care of everything. So let me get to the file here, and we will begin. We'll get through at least a dozen stories tonight, true stories tonight, and then we'll see where we go after that, if I do any more or not. This first one, this one says, so this is a thing that's been bothering me for over 2 years now. I tried explaining it to people, but I wondered if anyone could offer an explanation or has experienced anything similar. My house that I bought 2 years ago is haunted, for sure. My partner and I have seen a face of some kind. We've heard running up and down the stairs and doors open. It doesn't bother us. However, before I found out the house was haunted, I was in the dining room, which is open to the kitchen. I was with one of my rabbits, feeding him. All of a sudden, it sounded like all of the plates, cups, and cutlery all smashed at once. It actually made me jump. My rabbit never moved, but I don't think an earthquake would move him. I checked everywhere, but found nothing. Is there such a thing as a sort of trapped noise? It sounds stupid, which it doesn't, but could it be a sound that has come from, if this makes sense? And that's where that one ends. Uh, I've heard a similar sound in my own place. Not so much the all the silverware and cups and everything, but definitely just it sounded like a massive glass bowl fell from the top of my refrigerator and crashed to the ground, the floor, and shattered into many pieces. Thing is, first of all, I don't have much glass cookware because it's glass, and if it breaks, I'm not going to be able to see all the pieces very well, and because I'm legally blind. Second, I would not put a huge glass object on top of my fridge anyway, just for that very reason. I do not need that thought of that possibility of that coming down in my mind all the time. I only put plastic things up on that fridge, so if it falls, it's probably not going to break. And so I've heard that noise before. It's also fascinating that the rabbit didn't really react to it. I wonder if it was some kind of a residual noise uh, or from another time, especially if it only happened that one time, too. I always wonder about the experience, especially in my case, and I guess really in houses in general, if they've been around long enough. If you think about the number of people that could have lived in that place over the course of even a few decades, expand that a century or so, give or take a couple decades, you could have so many families in there that things could happen. And if there's any kind of weird time anomalies going on that happen even once, that could possibly explain something like that. And that could also explain why it only happened that one time. So, um, it is, though, I do wonder other things. Well, they kind of went over it. So, it sounds like a fairly active location. I'm hoping that they said it doesn't really bother them, so that's good. And yeah, hopefully that noise never happens again, because that's not a fun noise to hear, because then you worry about how big of a mess do I have to clean up, and of course, depending on the situation, how careful do I have to be so that I don't hurt myself in trying to clean up. So, but but yeah, that's an odd one, especially the way that the animal did not react, and that's I've come across that before. So often animals do react, but then there's also plenty of other cases where they don't. And I don't know if that means that there's nothing really there, or it's just they can tell what the energy is, and if it doesn't feel negative and then it doesn't bother them. I'm not really sure how to explain that. But moving on to the next one here. Let's see. This one says, I've been hearing someone call out to me since I was around 9 or 10. The first time I was alone, sleeping in my parents' room, while my dad was on the couch and my mom was in my sister's room. We had a movie night, so we were scattered. I guess they mean around the house. Laying there, trying to sleep, it called. It was a whisper, but it was there. I ran as fast as I could, jumping completely the living room couch. Every so often it would say my name. Even if we moved, it would happen. A loud whisper, but nothing ever followed. The last time it happened, I got the nerve to ask, "What? What did you want?" It said nothing, and it actually hasn't happened since. I'm just curious if anyone knows what this is or has experienced this. And that's where that one ends. It's fascinating that it stopped once the person uh, actually asked who was there, or what did they want, who was there, what did they want. Um, Maybe it was just the attention, just acknowledgement. I'm not sure. But It is odd that it happens a few times here and there, but not constantly, but enough to where eventually, I guess, the person there got tired and just decided to answer, and I don't know about confront, but at least try to get the whole thing to advance further than just a one-sided. Uh, well, it's not really a conversation, but anyway, moving on to the next one here, and I apologize for the sounds of the heater if you hear it, but I am in Michigan, so that is how that goes. This one says, let me start by saying that weird happen all the time. It's a running joke when something goes missing that the house ate something again. But today was a new level of weird. I was lying in bed playing a game on cell phone. My landline rang, so I dropped the cell phone on my chest. The cell was no five. I'm sorry, not the cell. The call. The call was no more than 5 minutes. I placed the landline beside me in the bed and reached for the cell phone on my chest. It wasn't there. I checked the bed, but couldn't find it. I took everything off the bed, but no cell phone. I thought that maybe it had fallen on the floor, maybe rolled under the bed, or fell in the trash can. No, no, and no. Scratching my head and trying to figure out what happened, I decided to call the cell phone on my landline, just in case it rolled under the bed further than I could see. I heard a faint ring, but it wasn't in. I went through the dining room, the kitchen, and there in the living room was my cell phone, lying on a table beside the recliner. How did it get there? I didn't put it there. I'm the only person in the house. Talk about a crazy way to start your day. And that's where that one ends. That one is fascinating because it's not just something that was a little ways away. How did it? It must have. See, I'm guessing they would have the person seen something if a person would have come in there and done that. It sounds almost like it had to have been removed by something invisible, possibly teleported. Who knows? Uh, but that is an odd one. I never heard of an object like that vanishing off of the top of someone, basically, and then appearing somewhere else like that. So, and it's not like the person forgot where they put it. It's not none of those usual situations where we could possibly write these things off. They know where they put it, and I'm guessing there was no pressure, or at least not much when it was removed. I would also think if the fingers that grabbed it, even if they were invisible, unless they were just barely physical at all, but just enough to pick up the phone. It's really there's so many questions with all these kinds of experiences when it comes to objects, but especially when it's on a person. That to me is a new thing. I don't think I've heard of that something quite that big or that heavy uh, vanishing from off of a person's body like that. So I thought that was really fascinating. Uh, and then appearing in the living room. The I'm glad they had their landline so they could just call the cell phone. and speed up that process of finding it a little bit. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, it was my wife's grandma's birthday the other day, and we tried to call her last night to wish her well and chat. She didn't answer, and my wife just hung up. We are both 100% sure we did not leave a voice, and if we unintentionally did, it would have been like a pocket dial message of our background conversation. Today, my wife got a text from her grandma saying, I love the birthday song. You guys are silly. My wife responded, what are you talking about? Her grandma said, the voicemail you left me, singing happy birthday last night. It's your caller ID and voice. We obviously had no idea what she was talking about. So she sent us a screenshot. Sure enough, it displayed a new voicemail from my wife's phone number, time-stamped 20 minutes after we had called. Weird, but maybe a tech glitch. We both insisted it wasn't us, but my wife's grandma was very persistent. Insistent that it was. So I asked her to send us a recording of the voicemail. The weirdest part was when we listened, it did sound a lot like my wife, except younger, like a more childish version. And then after singing happy birthday, the voice said, hold on. According to Grandma, she hadn't received or made any other phone calls that night. So now we're all super confused. The weirdest part was that yesterday was also the birthday of my wife's late grandpa, which is why we waited a day to call. That day is a hard one for Grandma, so we wanted to make sure she was doing okay. So maybe it was him from beyond, but yeah, super weird experience for us. And that's where that one ends. That is fascinating. Sounds like a time anomaly of sleep, and there are so many of these accounts. You can, if you listen to enough shows or read enough experiences online, you'll find accounts of phone calls or voice messages. I don't think I've heard too many voice messages, but definitely phone calls from other points, and sometimes it's people that know each other. Other times it's people calling places that where they think it's one place. They're calling for one business, let's say, and they get someone saying it's another business, and they think they have their own number, but they check and it's not. And then they find out later, it turns out the business that the person on the line was talking about did exist prior to the current business in that location. So there is something that can happen, it seems, when it comes to phone calls, even up till today. With that true story there. I mean, obviously, I always like to lean towards it happened more than it didn't, just in case it did happen, and I'd rather believe in one or two exaggerated accounts and among all the real ones than not believe a real one. Uh, that's cell phones. That's not even landlines this time. So really is fascinating. As I always say, I think that the more technology advances and the more people become, the more advanced and possibly the more frequently these kinds of things may happen going forward. So let's move on to the next one here. And see what this one, as I always like to say, sometimes I find these and then it's sometimes weeks before I actually read them on the show. So a lot of times I'm surprised all over again as I read, even if I remember part of it still. Um, Sometimes I pick up on things I didn't before, and other times I've just totally forgotten. So it's almost like reading it for the first time. This one says, so I have moved in with my boyfriend in South Wales. We live above an old people's centre where they gather a few times a week for activities, a cup of tea, and a chat. My boyfriend has said to me before that he could hear a radio. We have been in bed, and he has said in the morning that it sounded like, excuse me, it was coming from the pillow, and I heard it, but I hadn't. The center below us is closed after 4 p.m., so we are the only ones in the building. Tonight, I went downstairs through the front door, which is also accessed by the people who attend the center, to see if a package had come yet. As I went to open the door, I heard a radio playing old music coming from one of the rooms. During the day, a man sits in there who works here. I assumed it was him working late, which never happens, and said hello. Once outside the front door, I looked through the window into the room, and there was no one in there. When I went back in the when I went back in, the music had stopped. I had totally forgotten about my boyfriend mentioning the radio music in our room until I told him about what happened when he got home. What could it be? I'm a little freaked out, and that's where that one ends. I do wonder how long that place has been sort of a center like that. I don't know if you call. Well, I mean, it's just like this center for older people. So I wonder how long it's been that, and I don't know. I wonder if it's some kind of residual from when it first became that, or even just before that time, depending on how old the building is. So um, I don't know. It's amazing when you get you have one person have an experience, and then someone else has a similar experience, and you can kind of it helps validate each other's experiences in a way. But it sounds like, see, what I would like to know, of course I can't because these are posts that are made, that's it usually, except for comments here or there, but I want to know, was the room that the writer heard the music coming from, was that directly the bed in the bedroom that they slept in on the second floor? Or was it different locations? Because that also could sort of complicate finding an easy answer for it, for what it might be. So I don't know what that surprised me if it had something to do with maybe the fact that it was a center for older people, and if it's been that kind of place long enough, then it's hard to know. Maybe someone passed away in there that liked a certain kind of music, and that's what they were doing. Um, or even just someone that passed away not in that building, but they went there a lot and listened to certain kind of, that's what they were hearing. It's hard to know, like I always say. Moving on to the next one here. This one looks like a longer one. Okay. So this is when I was around 12 or 13, I was home alone, cooking down for my brother, who was 9 at the time, since my parents were at work. Suddenly, I heard my brother coming downstairs, so I went over to let him know lunch was ready. Excuse me. He looked confused and asked me how I came downstairs so fast. I told him I had been downstairs cooking the entire time, which made him even more confused. He told me he went inside my room and saw me inside my, and when he tried to talk to me, I frantically ran away. I got a little spooked, but paid no mind to it, thinking my brother was just playing tricks. I'd also like to add that on top in my closet is the trap door to the attic, which I've never been to. I mean, opened. Fast forward 4 years, I was on a video chat with my friend while picking an outfit for school. I needed to get laundry downstairs, so I left my phone in my closet and told her I'd be back soon. As I was coming back upstairs, I heard my friend having a conversation with someone, and then repeating my name over and over again. I asked her who she was talking to, but she was confused and said she'd been talking to me the entire time. I told her that wasn't possible because I was downstairs, but she insisted it was my voice. I've never seen this thing that's trying to impersonate me, but I do admit I often feel like I'm being watched. My closet is open. I have no idea what the heck this is, so I was wondering if anyone has any idea what it could be. And there's another little part here. It says update. I left my phone in the closet with a different friend on a video chat, and she was also having a full-on conversation with me, in quotation marks there. And that's where that one ends. So here we have closets again, something that pops up so often. Now, this time that I can think of where I've heard of a mimic being sort of associated, if that's what it is, associated with it like that. Um, but it's also, again, such a common area for events. And not only that, you see common areas for paranormal activity to happen, which is closets and attics, the top of the house or the building. So, I don't know. What would really be wild is if there was some kind of a mirror up there. I had a recent post I found and shared on one of these from someone who had experiences where they had a mimic around them in their house for a lot of years, and it always only happened when they were sleeping facing the mirror, and once they stopped doing that, the mimic went away. But then once they started again, they started getting this weird feeling, and to the point where they were sleeping across from the door to their bathroom as an adult. These things happened when they were a kid. Uh, and they're in the bathroom right across from where they slept. So they said in the house there, they started closing the bathroom door at night when they went to sleep. just so they wouldn't get that weird feeling. Of course, this doesn't have to, not everything has to tie together. But that is a fascinating one. And there's really a few different elements here, too. I've heard of, shared before, accounts of people seeing, hearing things on these video chat calls on phones and tablets and computers or whatever. So a lot going on there. A lot of, I don't know, maybe a lot of possible sources for that activity, and a lot of going on there. Moving on to the next one here. Let's see, lost my spot. Okay. This one says, just tonight, my boyfriend was driving home from work and passed by my neighborhood park, like he usually does on his commute. It would have been around 10:30 p.m. when this happened, so it was completely dark. As he approached the stop sign, he noticed the toddler swing, making a perfect 90 straight up and down motion. He thought, that's strange, and is out at the park that let their kids. He took a few more seconds to look, and there was no one. No one around, no cars in the lot, no one. He just called me and told me what he saw. He can't find an explanation, and neither can I. I've been to this park and lived in this neighborhood for about 10 years now, and I've never experienced anything like this. The neighborhood is on the newer side. Most houses constructed in the late 2000s. Does anyone have a similar experience? And that's where that one is. I've heard of rare cases of that, of swings appearing on their own when there's no wind, and almost like some visible is sitting in it. I don't think I've ever heard of a tower in that, though. That's kind of creepy in a way. But I have heard of that with regular size swings. And I don't know what that could mean, if there's someone there, some spirit or soul there, just sort of having fun, and all the witness is seeing is the swing moving. I'm not sure, unless it's supposed to be. It's being done in some cases to get the attention of someone that's going by. That's always possible as well. But yeah, that's an odd one. Not so much because it's a swing going up and down. It's just the fact that it was a toddler swing, because usually those, I mean, as far as I know, those are designed for just a toddler. So it's not like, I wouldn't think an adult could easily be, or comfortably beyond that thing. Then again, I haven't been anywhere near a swing set in years. So anyway, and I couldn't do it now anyway. It would make me dizzy, and that'd be a bad time. But anyway, this next one says, over the last 2 months, some strange things have been happening in our house. Recently, my partner walked down the hallway and joined me in the living room. About 30 seconds later, we clearly heard the front door open. We were confused because she'd just been there and the door was locked. When we checked, it was still shut and still locked, and we hadn't heard a key. We live with her parents, and when we told them, they said they'd heard the same thing a few nights earlier in the middle of the night, and even startled They checked the whole house, thinking there might be an intruder, but no one was there. Another odd thing, for the past weeks, whenever I wake up at night to use the bathroom, I hear the sound of a light switch flicking, but no light turns on or off. This only happens at night and never during the day. Last night, after being woken by our cat, I got up to go to the bathroom, and we both heard the bathroom door lock. I assumed one of my partner's parents had gone in before me, but no one came out. When we checked, the door was and the room was empty. These sounds are very specific. Door locks and switches for lights we know well, and they don't seem like they could be coming from anywhere else. Does anyone have an idea what could be causing? And that's where that one ends. I'm leaning towards, I wonder if it's some kind of residual. It's odd that it would be that, because you would think if it was going to be that, then it would happen in every place because of all the times that doors and light switches get turned, get used, are used by people. I've never heard of the light switch thing without the lights actually turning on. So I don't know. Let me see. I can't check. Hello, Mike. I see you there. And hello, Derek. And Derek says, "Huh, in the 2000s is cool. A bunch of 2000s ghosts running around in oversized NBA jerseys." Okay. Huh. Yeah. I was gonna say the doors, the sounds of the doors opening and closing and locking. I never heard the sound of it locking, but my cousin and I, when we were around teenage, like in our teens, we when we were in his house, which is where we had my first experience that I'm aware of, and many others. We when we'd be up on the second floor and we in the house, we would hear doors opening or closing on the ground floor, and it'd be in the middle of the day. And the first few times when we were there, we went and checked to see if someone had come home or someone had come in that wasn't supposed to. And the doors were always right where they had been before the last time we had been down there. And we never heard any vehicles pulling the driveway. At the time, my cousin's room was right above the garage and right in front of the driveway. So it was really odd. And eventually we stopped checking and the sound stopped. So it makes me wonder, was that residual or was that someone or some, I don't know, spirit or soul or other entity trying to get our attention in that way for whatever reason? And I guess that could be the case in this true story I just read here, but I don't know how or why. So my mind automatically goes to residual, but that may not, that's what it is. So, as always, I just try to think of possibilities here of these experiences, and even then, there's probably others that I'm just not aware of. So let's just check on the chat here. So I think I've gotten everybody. Yep. So thank you all for being here. So let's move on to the next one here. And once I find my spot again, got at least. This next one says, "I live in an 85-year-old house and am only the third owner. I've heard floor creaking and doors closing or opening, but my husband doesn't believe in ghosts. Our stairs make a very specific noise when walking down them. I could tell you what stair you were on with my eyes closed. It's a small house, so I have been sleeping on the couch, and I have 3 kids who often wake up and come downstairs for water or because of a bad dream or something. I heard the sound of the top landing and woke up immediately and listened as they came downstairs. Right before Christmas, I woke up to the sound of the top stair, and as usual, I just waited patiently for my kid to come into the living room. So the bottom of the stairs, which was about 5 feet from the foot of my bed, they mean the couch there. Oh, there's a period there. I read that wrong. Anyway, it says, anyway, nobody came in to the living room. So I said out loud, oh, it's you. Okay, I hope you have what you need. And then immediately, a Christmas window candlelight that was temporarily on the mantle turned on. I swear, I about died. I was so amazed, but I knew that my husband would think I was being silly, and I couldn't tell my 9 and 5-year-old kids that a ghost was. I just needed to tell this to someone who wouldn't think I was making it up, that it's just a coincidence. Also down in the next 2 years. But should I do anything for the ghost before this happens? And it says thanks. And that's where that one ends. I don't know. I'm always cautious about telling anyone what they should do. Um, I would say, as always, go with how you feel when you have these experiences, but then also be aware that you could be wrong, and that's what anyone can do. So if someone was in that simulation, um, then they'd have to decide if they wanted to try to communicate, to tell the individual that might be there that, look, this place is going to be coming down soon. There's all that can play out. So that's why I don't ever like to really answer any of these kinds of questions directly. Just be aware there's a lot of possibilities on how that could go, and some could be good, some could be neutral, some could be bad. You never know. So even in my own experiences, I try not to really communicate or interact any more than I need to. I sort of like to just let things happen as they will, and I never ask for more at the time. I always kind of sort of hope for more as long as they're positive experiences, but I'm careful not to ask for more. The only exception, of course, is when I had the sightings, multiple sightings of blue lights in the sky, along with a sense of a consciousness. I did invite them to come into my home, which, as far as I know, they have not, and I haven't seen them now. It's been a year or two, I think, since I saw the last one. But and then there's there's only a couple times ever that I've made actions and sort of try to communicate, but that was again after I had a feeling like whatever was there was positive, and even then I still kept that I could have been wrong and tried to just hope for the best. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, my mom has had the same cell number since 2001. I have had mine since I was 16 in 2004. Today, at around 3 p.m., I was on the phone with my mom, just talking about my kid and how my dad's new job is going. All of a sudden, the call got fuzzy, like someone was crinkling paper right down. And then this younger yet very familiar voice cut in and started talking to my mom just on a tangent. It was something about how unfair it was that he couldn't go on a trip. We could hear him, but he couldn't hear us. And eventually, it just stopped altogether. And we kept the call going. Commented on how weird call interference is on new phones, and hung up. Now, going back and thinking on it, that voice was me. I remember that in my 17. I wanted to go to let me see here, a place in Wisconsin with a group of older kids in high school. And she said no, almost instantly, and would not tell me why. I was so mad at her for weeks after. I have a journal from high school that I found that even has me complaining about it. I've never had something like this happen, and I'm confused at our universe right now. Ghosts? Sure. People are strong and can for sure leave stuff behind. But a call from the past, coming in clear as day, that's odd. And that's where that one ends. And I would agree. And that is really amazing. And I don't know, again, that's a couple of times now. I had true stories tonight with phone calls involving weird phone calls. And not only that, phone calls from the past of people that were on the phone call, but basically the past and the present possibly coming together in some weird way through phone calls. And I do wonder with that. I'm going back to the first one where the first, well, not the first one, the previous phone call related account that I read tonight. Was that from or a voice message from another time exactly, or some kind of alternate parallel universe type situation? Because the writer there didn't say that they remembered having that conversation or making that phone call before to their grandma. They didn't say, I recognized the way I sang this happy birthday song. They didn't say that. So it makes me wonder. And of course, I could be wrong on that, definitely. But as always, with all this weird phone, and if you think about it, it is a battery that has communication abilities built into it. So it is really odd. And yeah, so that's a good point. There in the chat says, I wonder how many garbled phone calls people get all the time, but just don't recognize the voice. The future could be calling us all the time and we don't know it. Yeah, the future or the past or alternate parallel places, times, uh, all these things. So, and it really, and like I said, I find these every so often, these weird paranormal experiences involving phones and phone calls and phones vanishing and appearing and all these things. So, yeah, I see you there, Mike. Yeah, I don't know. Um, so anyway, I think that's really all I have to say on that one because I don't know what else I have nothing else to really I can think of about it except that it's amazing. It really is just amazing, as well as being animal and all those things. So moving on to the next one here. This one says, this happened so many years ago now, but I figured I'd share this for people who want a good story. So I live in the northwest part of the UK, and I got at a retail shop for clothing. We started the store, so it was empty when we arrived, and we spent weeks filling up the place with stock, especially the that we used for the main storage stockroom. The stockroom had built-in uh, rails. I guess I mean, yeah, so rails for clothing that were 3 rows high. So when it's all full, you can't see past each one, and acts as a decent soundproofing when it's all thick jumpers and coats and similar things. Sounds like possibly a great place to set up a little recording studio. Anyway, so it was common to shout loudly if we thought someone was around. So if no one responded, you start freaking out. We all became pretty convinced it had a weird vibe after a few months of being there. But when we started sharing stories, it felt so much more real. At first, it was squeaking sounds, the sound of coat hanging along the metal rails, as if someone was looking through clothes or organized. So you would hear it and think someone was there, and you turned the corner to see no one. Sometimes you'd hear people talking or laughing, turn the corner, and no one would be there. Sometimes you'd see the silhouette of someone behind rails or around, and there'd be no one there. It was beyond trippy. Then the one day thing happened. I was in the stockroom alone, and I was on a ladder sorting stuff out, and I heard what sounded like a heavy sheet of cardboard making making a wobbling sound as it hit the floor right behind me. I turned around, looked down, and saw a photograph just lying there on the floor. There's nothing above me it could have fell from. I stepped down, picked it up, and it was a group of pretty elderly women who were all smiling at work in aprons. It looked like the stock room was some kind of factory at one point. There, there were machines. If I had to guess, it must have been like 1950s to early 60s, maybe. The main thing to remember is we were in that building from the start when it was gutted. That folk couldn't have been around all along, and it couldn't have come from anywhere, but it wasn't there when we first started working there. And that's where that one ends. I wonder if sort of a, excuse me, a hello from the past again, in a way. Some consciousness spirit that sort of had that picture with them somehow. Um, and then and then uh, and then left it there for literally dropped it out of there for this person who wrote this post to find. Did it accidentally get dropped? And again, time anomalies. Uh, so yeah, that's odd. Yeah, spooky stock rooms. I like it. Yeah, Derek says. And yeah, so I'm gonna read what Mike had earlier. Uh, and he's talking about the phone call. Last one there. Some old guy was calling, and then LOL, and that was you from the future. And he says, and it's true. Uh, the Robert who calls into Mike's show, Trouble Minds Radio, has a story. It has that story, and says it happened to him, and swears it's real. It put his life back on track. Yeah, so really fascinating. But yeah, with the picture there, um, objects it appears can vanish and reappear, and we don't know how. So I just wonder, was that accidental or intentional? So that's all I have really on that one. So we'll do one more here, and then we'll call it a night. Let's see. This one says, I'm 22 now, but this happened around the time I was in the fourth or fifth grade. I was up later than my specific bedtime, watching a TV show. I was laying in bed when I heard my door open. I looked at the door and saw a head peek into the room with a hand door. It wasn't just a head, though. Not only was it at a sorry, if I could read right, at a freakishly tall height, where the top of its hair was close to the door, but were no definable features on the face. It was also bent in at an angle that I don't think, realistically, would be comfortable for a person's neck. It stood there for a few seconds, staring at me, before the hand and the head receded and the door closed. At first, I thought it was my dad or brother, but the older I got, I realized the figure wasn't big enough to be my dad. He is a broad guy, and if he was peeking in my room, at least one part of his body would uh, would have been seen. My brother also wasn't home that night. Where this TV was located in relation to my bedroom door also could not have cast a light in any way to muffle out facial features. My brother and I, our bedrooms were upstairs, and our house is very old. There was no way for someone to get up the stairs without me hearing them creaking. The house itself was built in 1845, and while the resident before us lived there for decades, I know it traded owners many times before that. I don't know the specific history, and I do not have any ideas of what the thing I saw could be. And that's where that one ends. That's almost like a creature or cryptid or alien, any of those things. Some weird kind of there. I always wonder with that too. When you hear about these, and I've found so many accounts of this. A lot of times more out in a building, but not always. Like when it's something that is featureless, but it's humanoid shaped, but it's out of proportion or too tall or too short. Uh, is this what people are seeing when they see what they think are all different kinds of things? Uh, Aliens, Bigfoot, just anything that they see out that they can't explain. If anything out there that can shapeshift, then how do we know what anyone is really encountering? And I just wonder about that in those cases where it's just featureless figure. Is it is that its norm? Is it some kind of in between state? Is it all that people can pick up on? Is there some kind of sensitivity or connection there that's happening, and it happens in different ways and or at different levels for different people? Uh, just as usual, nothing but questions here. And yeah, that's a fascinating one. So, but that is going to do it for me. If I do another half dozen, we'll be here for another half hour, and I think I'm done for tonight. Thank you all for listening in and being here, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.